Here's his email. Daniel says, have you guys done a show on people that keep the feasts on a different calendar according to the moon? Not lunar Sabbath, but I have some friends that are more alongside the Karaites that say that Yom Teruah will start presumably tomorrow night. And he wrote this a couple days ago. Tomorrow night, since the moon won't be seen in Israel yet. We have done a show on this actually, but very quickly, let me just go off on this for a second.
Loudmouth goes off. Loudmouth goes off.
The idea that some person is going to be sitting on their back porch looking up at the sky and all of a sudden going to sight the new moon, or that you're going to listen to some Nehemiah Gordon in Israel because he has placed himself in the official role of sighting the new moon is absolute nonsense. Beyond that, look, I understand that the Hebrew calendar that we have today was standardized in like the 3rd century by Hillel II. I get that, okay? However, there's reasons why it's so close all the time. And not only that, but to think that the calendar didn't shift in the 1st century, like they were just sitting, like everyone was waiting in Israel, and then they looked up in the sky, and all of a sudden, there was a new moon, and they said, hey, okay, now we know that here's the festival. That's totally not true. That's not how it worked. And not only is that not how it worked, but humans have had the ability to look into the sky, see the stars, and have astrology knowledge for quite some time. Now, they might not have the powerful telescopes and all those kind of things that we have today, but at the same time, if you look at the way that things are constructed in the ancient world, the pyramids, Stonehenge, all these things, what do they align with? They align with the stars. They knew when full moons were coming. If there was a sandstorm, somebody brought this up the other day, if there was a sandstorm for 7 days and you couldn't see the sky, did they still know that it was a new moon? Yes, they did. How did they know that? They knew that because they knew when the new moons were coming, first of all. Second of all, what did it shift? Were they off from the new moon ever? The answer is yes. They were off from the new moon. The witnesses were constantly challenged. Beyond that, it was the rabbinic, quote unquote. Now I know that that's an that's a word that I'm supplying back into. So let's not even say that. The religious leaders of the time would add months at a time, add leap months, right? Mm-hmm. Why did they do that? They didn't do it. It wasn't just like, oh yeah, we need to do that now. There were all these different factors that went into it. What do we see Yeshua doing? We see Yeshua going to the temple when the festivals were, when the general population were up at the temple. What does that tell you? Yeshua was following the majority calendar. He wasn't going off with Qumran and following the sun calendar. He wasn't going off and following some. It was a mixture of both the sun and the moon.
Right. What you see here is issues of protest. With the Karaites. Karaite assertion of their observance of the cycles of the moon correspond to a whole cluster of other protests that they have that are anti-rabbinic. And they embody in their practices these anti-rabbinic stances. They want to do things contrary and claim that they are doing it the true way, when in fact they have their own oral tradition.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though that's part of their thing is that they don't have an oral tradition, they actually do. I think people who want to, if you're a believer in Yeshua and you want to follow the Karaites, you have a lot of problems. Not least of which is the observance of the new moon. Because the observing of Shavuot is going to be different. Another thing is that the Karaites, now not that we need to hijack this and make this all about the Karaites, but I think is Michael Root a Karaite?
Yeah, I think that he's
Does he follow? He's following the same thing.
yeah, him and Nehemiah Gordon are like buddy buddy. So
Anyway,
anyway, yeah. I'm sorry, I just don't buy it. The majority of I'm not saying that we should follow the majority all the time. Everyone, I think, who listens to this show on a regular basis knows that I believe that much of the Mishnah and Talmud are responses to Christianity, and they don't go back to Moses. We shouldn't be following them. I don't take the passage in Matthew to mean that where Yeshua says they sit in the seat of Moses, so do whatever they say, but don't do what they do. I don't think that means oral tradition, oral Torah, that we should be following the Talmud and the Mishnah. None of that kind of stuff, okay? But Yeshua clearly followed the majority when it came to calendar issues. I'm going to follow my Messiah. I'm going to follow my Rebbe. And I'm going to do that the way that I'm going to do what he did, which is follow the majority in the calendar. The majority calendar is the Hebrew calendar.
And here's another part of Yeshua building his ecclesia. Acts chapter 2, Shavuot. We had Jews from all over the world who reckoned Shavuot not according to the Sadducean, not according to the Karaite calendar. And that's when God pours out the Ruach HaKodesh. Okay? That's that's a divine, what do you call it? Support or affirmation of that calendar, if you ask me.